Hello, this is our YouTube/podcast project, and we are all just going to talk about it. We're going to start off with reading. So, Ashley, you can take it away now.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, let me make this. Okay, so I'm doing attendance checks. Okay, so basically, let's just talk about what an attendance check is. So basically, it's you summarizing like the key points of the lesson you learned that day or that was taught. And like, like asking some questions about what are things you like most want to remember, what are some questions you still have, what are things you disagreed with. Basically just you like reflecting on your thoughts of the lesson and kind of what you took away from it. So for me, I use this little app on my laptop that's called Text Edit. And it's just like this little notepad that I would just put at the top of my screen every class. And I just like add little notes along as the teacher was talking. I just like kind of take some notes, just like synthesize the key points that the teacher was saying. Yeah, so basically, what my favorite, why is it not changing? Sorry, okay. Sorry. Okay, so my favorite, like why I liked attendance checks, I really like them because they kept me motivated to attend class. And they're worth 10 credits, which like isn't like a ton, but it's like enough to like make you want to, like do them and like get them done. They really help me pay attention in class and help me focus on the key points. And they actually helped me like a couple times I'd find myself like wanting to go back and just reviewing them and rereading them to like see what I like missed that day or whatever, just so I can like kind of remind myself of what was taught that day. And this is bad to say, but they actually helped me stay awake in class because the class is at 10:15, which isn't like too early, but it's still early enough that I was like a little tired. So they kept me like awake and not distracted during the lectures. And it really helped me like just focus my attention on what the teacher was saying, which I thought was super helpful. So what I would change, sorry. Okay, so the pros to attendance checks is it gives you motivation to attend class. It gives you like a reason to, obviously besides the fact that you need to attend class, it just gives you more of a reason to actually like make the effort to join the Zoom call every morning at 10:15 and like gives you more motivation. Keeps you focused on the lesson and what really like you should be taking out of it. It helped me anyway gain a better understanding of what I was learning. It helped me like kind of think more about what Bropa was saying rather than just like kind of in one ear out the other. It helped me ask questions and it helped me think of questions to ask. I think it keeps the students engaged during the Zoom calls. Like I think, especially with Zoom, I think it's kind of hard, with COVID and everything to like have students come to class. And so Zoom obviously is not the ideal way to have class, but it's kind of what we're dealing with right now. And so I think it's a good way to make sure kids are still coming to class. I think it also helps them like stay accountable for their effort on coming to class. And I've never done attendance checks before. Like it was kind of a weird thing for like, I just thought it was kind of weird because obviously I've always had class in person. So I just thought it was kind of a weird thing, but I actually really ended up liking them. So some cons to, sorry, it does not move very smoothly. So some cons to attendance checks that I found is sometimes like I really do go to the class. Like I genuinely am there and present, but I just forget to do the attendance check. And then I'm like, frick, then I lost 10 points and that kind of sucks. And then like, I'll remember like the next day, but then I like won't remember anything from the class. So that's kind of a little bit of a downfall of them, but it's also easy to be distracted in class and sometimes is hard to focus. And like, since the attendance check is like the only thing you get credit for that day, it's sometimes hard to focus. For me personally, being over Zoom, I find it kind of hard sometimes to hear what Bropa's saying and like what other students are saying. Like sometimes I find myself like really having to like really listen closely, like, and sometimes it's just hard for me to hear, which obviously is no one's fault. That's just how Zoom is, but that's just like one downside to them. Also people can easily like totally do them without really paying attention. Like you can still get the credits even if you don't really do them, which is good for them, I guess. And sometimes I find myself, I'm so focused on what I should be putting into my check that I kind of like zone out from what's actually being taught. I'm not like really retaining like that much information just because I'm so focused on what should actually be put into my attendance check that I kind of forget what Bropa's actually saying and stuff, which is probably my own fault and not really that. What I would change about attendance checks is I think at the start, I think the restrictions were like a little unclear on how to properly do an attendance check. Like I was a little bit confused if I should like make like this huge like like bullet points, like a paragraph. Like I felt like it wasn't super clear on like how to do the proper attendance check. I think that for future, like maybe just like make it a little more clear on what exactly should go into the attendance check and what exactly the teacher was looking for and the kind of key points that we should summarize. That's the only thing I would change. Like I don't really have like too much else that I would change. Like overall, I really I really like doing attendance checks. I think that they've really benefited me as a student. They've really helped me like progress in this class. I found that like it's helped me hold myself more accountable for attending class, and it's helped me like stay focused in the Zooms. And I think for like as a future teacher, attendance checks, like even if it's not on Zoom, it's kind of like a smart thing to like just have like a exit slip or whatever, like just like synthesize some of the key points of that day's lesson. Like even if you're not on Zoom, just in a classroom, I think it's really beneficial to, then it kind of gets you like thinking and kind of gets your mind like going about the things you learned that day. So I think that that's something like I would definitely use as a future teacher. I think that, yeah, like I really think I would use that in my classroom. So what are your guys' thoughts on attendance checks? Like do you guys like them? Like where's your stance with them?
I feel like I liked them to a certain extent. I agree with you that it was really hard to know what to do. I found myself being like, should I just take a picture of my notes and submit it? Do I have to like rewrite my notes? Do I have to summarize those notes? What do I say in those notes? And I felt like, especially at the beginning, it was a little weird that we had to do it, but I definitely like how you said exit checks for students. I remember the teachers used to do exit checks, and I remember being so scared about them, but they made me remember what I was going to do. So I think it's important for him to like remember to do those. And I think it's important for them to keep it in this class, just because sometimes teaching classes can feel lax in other classes where you don't feel like you have to pay as much attention, but instead focusing it on so you actually do pay attention to it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I had never done like attendance checks or like anything like that before. I'd done in one class, he had like a Google form where it basically said like, are you here? And you'd say like yes or no. And like that was our attendance check, like that was it. But I'd never done where like you submitted like your notes and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I've done for attendance checks like every day is I just take notes, like whatever I think that's important, whatever I like need to remember and stuff like that. I'll just write them down on a piece of paper. And then at the end of class, I just take a picture of that paper and I like scan it in with my like scanning app, and then submit it to the attendance check spot on Canvas. And I haven't necessarily like noticed like a life-changing difference with them or anything like that. But I definitely noticed like there was a couple things like that he would say like a couple due dates that I would remember better, like when I wrote them down, like in my attendance check, than if I had just been sitting in class. Like I definitely was like, okay, like I can see that that is a benefit from attendance checks is like me writing them down and like having to be like, oh yeah, he said that. And then like putting pen to paper and actually writing it. I definitely noticed like it helped me like remember due dates and stuff like that, which I always struggle with. I always forget when things are due. So that was good for me for attendance checks.
Yeah, I agree with what's been said. I like the attendance checks because it's like a way to stay focused and a way to remember everything that like stands out to you. A lot of the times I will write like things like that I want to imply when I become a teacher, and I will like write them so I remember them in the future and I don't forget them. I also like how he has it due that day instead of at the end of the week, so you don't forget and like don't have it like mix up the 2 days and you don't know which way is which. It's important to write it down as soon as you hear it, so then you remember it. A way that I found is to write as he's talking. Like I'll just type whatever he's talking about, and then it works for me that way.
Okay, I think we're gonna do readings next. Is that the next one?
Okay. So I'm going to talk on the readings and the reflections on readings. Why the readings are my favorite. They help me take the time to sit down and think about the messages being taught and like think about what I'm doing in my life and what I can change to hopefully make it better. And especially where I'm becoming a teacher and I want all of my students to get the best out of what they're learning. They all have inspirational messages in them with a specific purpose, but within that specific purpose, they have different kinds of meaning behind it. Like you can read it once and get something out of it. You can read it another time and something else comes out of it. It's never the same thing. It's whatever you need to hear or you want to hear. They all generate on becoming educators and teaching students, but also teaching ourselves to become that teacher that the students need. It's not about just teaching the students, it's about teaching ourselves and what we can do better. I like the quote that he said earlier today, where he said that education is not for us, it is for those who are benefited from what we are teaching and where we are going. Why I think we should keep doing them. They bring inspirational messages to the classroom. And when we do the discussion/oral exam the next day to discuss them, that's when I take the time to really think about it and really make sure that it's really what I'm learning. I get more out of it if I know that there's a oral exam the next day. I tend to skip over the readings or like skim them if I know that there's not something the next day to prepare myself for, to help add insight to the class. They add a different concept to the class instead of it just being technology. They lift you up and give you hope and keep you going, especially like with a growth mindset and what our opinions are and making sure that we have good emotional health and things like that to help us keep going and make sure that we're not being held back by the stress or anything else in the college life. They also make me reflect on what I am doing and what I am going to be as a teacher. They help me, a lot of the talks talk about different ways that teachers influence students. And I take those ways and I make sure that they are doing what they need to learn. Another quote that I have loved since I started with this teaching career is teach the students, not teach the lesson. We need to be able to teach the students what they need to hear and not teach what we think they should hear, what the standardized test thinks they should hear. We need to teach them time management and things like that that will be useful in their future and not just memorizing formulas or things like that. What I would change, there were a couple of readings, but specifically 2 readings that I didn't connect with very well. I don't know if that was the same for the whole class, but these are the 2 talks that I didn't connect with very well. And I feel like they would be better as a lesson taught instead of a reading. So the first one is rigor and learning. Like I said, I think we should put them in PowerPoints and have like a discussion or a talk about it instead of just reading and reflecting. It would certainly help to get the attention better on it. A lot of things in this reading was repetitive, and I think that got old a little bit. And so it was not very good for keeping the mind at full attention. The other talk was how you measure your life. And I loved the discussion we had about this reading in class, but I didn't really enjoy the reading itself. This reading is also another reading that I feel like would be better taught in person or over Zoom in a lecture instead of in a reading. It's important to have an idea of how to measure life and how to become better and become what you want to be instead of being held back by your past efforts and things like that. So it's important to take a step back and look where you're going and what you're doing with your life so you know what you need to do to fix it. Questions. What reading did you like and why? And what readings did you not like and why?
I personally really liked the one we just did last week, the Prince EA. Was that what it was? Prince EA, was that his last name? Yeah, I thought so. I liked watching that video a lot. And then I liked the project we got to do like with that video, but I really, really enjoyed that one. There was one other one that I really liked at the beginning of the semester, and I can't remember what it was, but that Prince EA one, I showed that to a couple people, like, and I like sent it to my mom. Like I really liked it. I thought it was very like true, and it was honestly kind of like different than like something you would normally read like in a classroom. Like it was kind of like bagging on education a little bit, and we were like, you know, taking it in a school class, and so I thought that was kind of cool, and I really enjoyed that one. So
one reading I really liked was actually just this week, like what is school really for? And Elder Bednar's talk. I really liked his talk. It was like about the purpose of life, like kind of like, and the atonement and how it relates to education. I really thought that was like, I just like how it has like a spiritual aspect to it. Like I just felt so uplifted by that one. Like I just thought it was so cool how they like like made education and atonement like they put them together. And I thought that I never thought about it like that. And I thought that was really interesting. So I really enjoyed this last week's reading.
I can talk about what I disliked. If the reading was more statistic based, I found myself kind of falling asleep. I have dyslexia. So if they were like big words or if it was like really drawn out with like a lot of statistics and things, I just found myself not grasping it. But I liked the talks. I liked how there was able to be a spiritual aspect to learning how to be a teacher and how we could connect it to something that we're learning like inside of us. I also agree with you, Jesse, when you were talking about all the ones that you didn't like. I also remember those two not sticking with me as well, so you're not alone. I just feel like when you're talking about certain topics, they shouldn't be in a reading form. So some of the readings I felt like just didn't click with me for earlier exam reasons, but they clicked with me for like readings I would read by myself. But I definitely think that the readings were all pretty much good. Like I found myself wanting to read them, but I think the more specific base, then I was just kind of like less likely to read it completely.
okay, I think it's my turn. I am presenting on oral exams. I'll share my screen. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Sorry, you guys probably saw my dad in that corner. Okay. How do you present it? Oh, it's view. There we go. Okay. So, oh, don't look yet. Those are to come. Okay, so I'm gonna do oral exams for the class. So what are they and how do they work? I had done oral exams before in another class. In high school, it was my Spanish class. So it was kind of obvious that you would do oral exams in Spanish class. But I'd never done any in like a college class before, in a college situation. So I'd never done it like kind of more pressure, I guess. I was kind of nervous about them right at the beginning. When he started talking about them, I thought it was going to be like this huge chunk of our grade, and like I was honestly really nervous for him. But I went in while I was kind of working on this presentation. I went in and I looked at Bropa's syllabus for this class, and it says, when he talks about oral exams, it doesn't touch on it very much, but it says 6 to 7 students will get an oral exam each class where they are asked about the readings. While the purpose is accountability, that's a tiny part. Mostly, I want to create a really rich discussion of what you've read. And so basically, students are asked to come to class prepared and willing to share, because it's completely like random who gets called on. I think he has like a random name generator, and his TAs like pick from that. But they're actually only worth 25% of the student's grade, along with readings and reflections, which was even like when I was making this presentation, it was like a lot less than I thought it was going to be. I thought they were worth quite a bit more points. But I think it was really important, like reading that in the syllabus, because I was like, oh, I guess I kind of like stressed out for no reason for these exams, like during class, because they weren't worth as many points as I thought. But I kind of touch on that a little bit later in my presentation, just on that anxiety and kind of stress that it brings. But let's see. So this is a really long slide, but I researched a lot about oral exams because I know that Bropa said he used to use them, I think when he taught, didn't he teach at a different university? And I think he used them there, so, something like that, or he saw them being used. I couldn't remember when I was doing this for the life of me. So if you guys can remember, let me know. But I'm pretty sure he used them in the past and really liked them. So that's why he does them for this class, or he saw someone use them or something like that. So when I was doing research for oral exams, I came across this article from Hamilton College, and I liked like literally everything in the article. That's why there's so many like quotes on this slide, because everything they said was so good. So I kind of want to discuss each of these points that I have here. So according to that article at Hamilton College, which I looked up is in New York, there's quite a few professors who do oral exams there. Not everyone does, and it's not like a requirement for Hamilton College, like for the professors to do that. But it is just something that certain professors started, and other professors have like seen the benefits of it, and so they began to do it as well. And so this article that I read was from hamilton.edu. It was from their like college website, so it was pretty legit. It wasn't just like an opinion piece of random people talking about the college. But so this first point I wanted to read was from Dan Chambliss. He was the Eugene M. Tobin Distinguished Professor of Sociology. So it sounds pretty important to me. I didn't know what all those words mean, but sounds important. He is one of the professors at Hamilton College. And so he's speaking of like his experience with them when he gives them. And I really liked what he says. He says, the way to get people to change their behavior is you get them real worried about what they've been doing, and then, crucial, you give them a clear path of what to do to fix it. I really liked that. That was probably my favorite quote from like this whole article, was his talking about this, because it like reflected just how I felt like with oral exams, especially our first one. I think our very first oral exam, I was the very first name called like in class. So I'd never seen them done before in class. And I was so stressed and so nervous coming to class that day. And I was like, I know I'm going to get called. Like, I totally know I'm going to get called. And I was so worried. And so I prepared like super hard the night before. Like I spent like the longest I spent on any of my oral exams for that first day, just because I didn't know what they were about. And not that they were necessarily like so much easier than what I thought that they were going to be, but I realized like that stress and anxiety that I'd felt for that first oral exam was like honestly really good for me, because it made me like want to work really hard, made me want to be really prepared. And like I was so nervous not knowing what to expect that like I was able to do well. Like I didn't feel worried when he called my name. Of course I was a little nervous, but I didn't feel worried that like my answer wouldn't be good. And so that's kind of what Dan Chambliss is talking about here, is like, he gets his students really worried, really nervous for these exams, and then he gives them like the way to fix it. I didn't put this in this quote page, but he basically like explained, like in his exams, he would give the students, I think it was like 6 to 10 questions. And then his oral exams were like a lot more intense than Bropaw's. Like he would call them in one by one, and like you would get an oral exam, just you and the teacher. And he would only have them answer like 3 of the 6 or 3 of the 10 or something like that. So they had to make sure that they prepared all of the questions, because they didn't know which one they were going to be called on. And that's kind of like how Brother Puccini does, is like he makes you prepare all of the questions, because you never know if you're going to get called on, you know. But I'll kind of skim through these. But so another professor at Hamilton College, Jamie Lee, I don't know how to say her last name, but she basically says, talking about them, she does them as well. She says, you just watch them, talking about the students, you just watch them get so much more confident. They come in so scared. And by the end, I think they do leave feeling like it was a holistic learning experience in a way that you don't get in other kinds of assignments, which I went to read a little bit later. They were supporting this point with students. This student, in the quote below, Erin Reed Erickson, she states, you have to think on your feet, you have to synthesize, you have to be succinct, and you don't have the opportunity to write something, look at it, go back and fix it, twiddle with it here and there. And then she basically goes on to state, like, she liked oral exams, but she had a couple of friends that took classes that had oral exams and they hated them. But overall, all of the students agreed that they were like very beneficial for them and very good for their experience, which I didn't put this in the slide, but another thing that the article touched on was that it was the first professor, Dan Chambliss. He basically said the reason he wanted to do oral exams was to prepare you for the real life, prepare you for like job interviews, and if you're like just careers was kind of the main thing that he touched on. But it totally makes sense. Like, I know when I've been in job interviews, you don't know what you're going to be asked. Like, you have to think on your feet, just like the student Erin says, like, you have to think on your feet. You don't have time to like write a resume and make yourself look all good and nice and like just the best parts of your life. Like, no, you have to think right then and be able to like blurt out things that are going to sound good and help you get a job and stuff like that. And so I think it honestly is like really smart to do oral exams, like with that in mind, as Professor Chambliss had said. Okay, so my opinion, if you guys haven't noticed, I personally like oral exams. I didn't mind them when I was in my Spanish class in high school. I thought they were fine. And I was really nervous for them when I got to Brother Puccini's class, but I really liked them. Like, I don't mind them. It makes me like, it definitely adds that stress and anxiety. But it definitely is like a stress and anxiety that makes me get my homework done. You know what I mean? Like, I definitely have classes where I don't really care so much because I know that it's not going to be too hard. And I think, I forget who it was. I think it was Jesse said like, it's easy in teaching classes, or maybe it was Ashley. It was easy in teaching classes to kind of like, you know, get a little bit lax because sometimes the material you already know and things like that. But I thought that oral exams like helped me to not feel so lax about the class. Like, it made me like want to get my assignments done, want to get my readings done in case I got called on. I didn't want to be like embarrassed in front of the whole class, you know. And I also noticed that whenever I prepare for oral exams, like I was able to enjoy class a lot more because I was able to know like what my classmates were talking about. I will say there was one oral exam that I didn't prepare the best for. I kind of skimmed the readings the night before or 2 nights before or something. And I was so nervous I was going to get called on, number one, because I wasn't really prepared. And number two, I wasn't really able to enjoy class because I didn't really know what my classmates were talking about too much. And so I noticed when I prepared for oral exams, like I was able to enjoy class a lot more. So how would I change them? truthfully, like I wouldn't change too much about them. I really like how Grandpa handles them, but I feel like I would give just a little bit more time. I don't know about you guys, but I always kind of felt like the oral exams were a little rushed, which was good because everyone like shared so much and had so much to say. And so it was good, like meaningful conversation, but I definitely felt like it was a little bit rushed. And I definitely felt like we could have used, more class time for the oral exams. I would try to get more students' opinions during the exams. Kind of the same thing with them being rushed, like we would just kind of run out of time. So there wouldn't be as many students to speak. And I would kind of change up the format a little bit, so it's not the same every week. It was just kind of the same, like it was nice that you knew what to expect with the oral exams, but I think it'd be kind of fun. I don't know exactly how he would change up the format, but I think it'd be kind of fun to kind of change it up, do something a little bit different, just so it wasn't the same like routine every single week. So I think I have one more slide. Yes, so questions. My questions for you guys as we discuss this. I've got 3. You're welcome to answer any of the 3. But the first one is, what did you guys think of oral exams? What's your opinion? Did you like them? Did you not? My second is, how did you personally prepare for them? Were you like stressed like me, or like take it really easy? And then my third question is, how would you guys personally change the oral exams? So those are my questions for you guys.
I liked the oral exams. Like I said earlier, it was a good way to make sure I actually did the readings and not like skim over them. I liked the class discussion that came from them as well. Like it wasn't necessarily an exam. It was more of a class discussion that brought up a whole different perspective than what I had originally thought. So I liked that about them. They had a different perspective from everyone who shared. I think that's a great way to not only get what you got out of it, but what others got out of it. And then when you go back and read it, you can see, oh yeah, I did get that out of it. So it's a great way to like reflect on that as well.
Yep. Thank you, Jessie.
I think for me, I really was stressed out in the beginning of it. I don't really do it very well. If someone asks me like a direct question, I have a hard time coming up with it randomly out of the blue, especially I don't have very good reading comprehension. So that scared the crap out of me. But I think that the way that he does it is really good. I really like the mulligan aspect of it, where you kind of have like a try again and he doesn't fault you for it. That to me was a really great move on his part. I really liked it though, because we're teachers. When our students ask us a question, we are not going to have a Google Doc of their answers immediately on it. I really liked how he did it, because it kind of felt like what it's going to feel like in the classroom, where if someone asks you a question, you don't have the answer, you don't like panic, but you have like a minute to like think about it and then you continue it. And I liked how sometimes he had not just a name generator, but he also had people like raise their hands and speak on it. I was never called on. I just like answered by like speaking up randomly, and he counted it. And so I think for me, I would change that kind of, where either saying you have to be called on or you can do it, because I think it was a little confusing on if you just had to be called on or if you just had to speak up. I think for me, that was a little off. I think also, like you said, just changing up the format, it got a little bit like tiring by the end, because it just felt like the same thing every Tuesday and Thursdays instead of having a little bit of like something added there. So I think that's true.
Yep. All right. Thank you, you guys. Go and stop sharing. Okay.
Okay, so I think it's my turn next, and I am doing the oral exams, and so we're gonna have that into that. Trying to find which. Okay. So I can present it. Okay. This is the projects. So I am the end of so each week we got assigned a project. And so this is what these are about. And so for this, I went about actually having people do a survey because I felt that was the best to incorporate different things because I couldn't do a lot of research into it because it kind of is specific to our class. So I figured that doing a survey was the best. I didn't get a lot of results, which is sad, but you make the best out of situations. So the list of them goes gamification, GPIV, Canva, social media, LMS, Nearpod, Flipgrid, Go React, PlayPosit, What is School For, podcast, YouTube. That sounds like a lot of stuff. So with this list, I wanted to see, I kind of went over what each of them is and what we had to do for each of them. I found myself going towards the Canva project. I'm a very creative person, so this project probably took me a good solid 5 hours to complete actually, because I had to put every detail perfect, and it's really bad, but yeah. And I found that I used it for different things. I did it for a PowerPoint presentation, one of the later projects. I created like a brochure for one of my other classes. I created a poster. I just found that was one of my favorite ones. It's not the most common, shockingly, and a lot of the results you're going to see later, people actually didn't like the Canva project, which I don't understand because it was easy software to use compared to some of the other ones. But I think it's one of the ones that I'm going to use most as a teacher and one that I can use as a student as well. My least favorite was probably either social media or Flipgrid. I had a really hard time with both of these softwares. They're really weird. They're really flimsy. They have a lot of struggles, and every software has its struggles, but these, I just feel like they just struggled more. The LinkedIn one was a little hard for me because you had to wait for how many connections, and so I found myself stressing out about if I would get enough. So you would like constantly check it to see if your number went up or something. Flipgrid was just a little weird, but other than that, it was fine. I would keep, I think, most of the projects. I think I would change them more than I would get rid of them entirely, because I think most of them taught something important. I think Flipgrid, I would change it by choosing a different software. I just think there's better softwares than Flipgrid that are probably free. I think it would cause less stress for students. And I talked to the TAs actually, and they said that more students came in that week than ever before because no one understood it. So I think that'll be a big thing. I think for social media, I would just change the numbers or just do something with that, or just have everyone do it in class period, follow each other, just because I felt with having to come up with the posts and the profiles and everything that it was really stressful for me to actually have to figure out the people as well. It was just too many parts to it. Changes, as I said, just different softwares, just figuring out which softwares clicked. I know there's a lot of people who struggled with other software, so just making sure the software stands up. I think it's just hard on the students if the software doesn't make sense, because you can understand the project completely, but then you can go to like submit something and something takes 8 years, or you do not know how to do it, or you have to do it through some other software and then you have to come to another software. So for me, that was really tricky. I remember I had to have my roommate help me with a couple of them because I just was stuck on it for just like hours on end. The ed tech tool I would use in my future classroom is Canva, Nearpod, and Canvas. I really liked Nearpod. I liked how it was the classroom and it was virtual, and you could like design it in certain ways. As I said, I'm really creative, so I liked doing that. Canvas is an obvious one. Everyone really uses Canvas, whether it's Canvas or Google Classroom, I don't know, but I think definitely an LMS software is a great idea for a classroom. I think Canva, just because posters are always nice and brochures and things that students can take home, it's really good at like cutesifying things, which I think kids do better with cute things than they do with like boring slideshows that have no personality. And so I think for that, I really liked that part of it. How hard do I think it was? I think it was a 3, maybe even a 2 some weeks. I'm very technical. I'm actually a certified IT. So for most of these projects, I had no problem figuring it out, but some of them were just really confusing. And some of them didn't make sense why we were putting in the information. One was about growth mindset, and another was about like digital literacy, but I didn't feel like we ever like talked about that actually in class. So like some of the topics were a little confusing because it was just like a one-off instead of making it about something that we actually were talking about that week, like the readings or something. Like tying in the readings to it probably would be a better idea than just doing like random topics for those. I think the social media one was the worst for me. I was the most stressed that week, so that was definitely like a 4. But I think overall the projects are a really good idea, and I like the format of doing one a week, and I like most of them for what they are. The survey results. Again, we only had 9 people respond over 48 hours, and so they're a little bit lacking. I might be one of those 9 people. It's fine. But here they are. So everyone's favorite project was Nearpod with a 60%, and then there was Canva with 30%, and What is School For with a 10%. I really liked all 3 of these, and I thought this consensus was pretty good. With how everyone kind of agreed. I agree with them that Nearpod was a really good one. Least favorite projects kind of went weird. I didn't expect some of the answers. As you can see, the bigger one is PlayPosit, which I completely understand because that one did not make any sense at all when you were like trying to submit it. Flipgrid is another one. Only one person said it, which I was actually shocked. Canva, 2 people said it. Gamification, 1 person said it. I understood this one because it was a video game, and it was kind of, everyone said that for the video game one, they didn't understand it because there wasn't like a list of video games, that he should give a list of video games or like ideas of video games, because I think everyone was kind of confused about what they should play or like getting stuck on that aspect of it. And then another one was social media, which again, I agree with, but what projects would I keep for future semesters? So this one, I have to show you the thing because I couldn't put it into a graph properly. So mostly everyone kind of, I can show you this. Mostly everyone said they would like to keep TPIV, social media, LMS, as you can see, Nearpod, and What is School For, which are good options. And then the second ones are podcast and YouTube with 8, Canva with 7, and then you get down to like 6, social media, 5, gamification, 4 Flipgrid, and 5 PlayPosit. And then what projects would you like to get rid of for next semester? Everyone says that they wanted to get rid of Flipgrid, which I agree. The next one was PlayPosit, and then the next one was social media with gamification coming up behind it with Canva next to it. I kind of agree with these results. So far, it's been pretty, like everyone kind of has the same answer. Overall, the summary of what they would change over the project was the software. Software was a big issue, or the relevancy. Everyone just didn't understand the relevancy through the topics that they were asked to teach on. Besides, I think that's why people liked some of the aspects of PlayPosit, is because we had like an app to discuss instead of it being like growth mindset, which is something we never talked about again, or things like that, which you would never use. And so most of it was like useful. Some people said that they would keep all of them because they're all necessary. One person said that it's the coolest concept, different site. There's just a lot of interesting ideas from people because it just changed because of the software. What ed tech tools are they going to use for the future? We have Canva, and Nearpod's the biggest, and then it goes Canva and LMS and Flipgrid and GoReact. I think this is basically the same for most people. Most people just said Nearpod, Canvas, and LMS because those are the 3 that you can really use a lot of times in your semesters, and it kind of makes sense in all teaching aspects to use them. On a scale of 1 to 5, how hard was the class? I was surprised with how many 4s there were. There's a lot of 4s, and there was a lot of 3s. This is each person. So out of the 9 results, each person has a different bar. There's one person that says 2. That may have been me. And then there are the 4s, and then there's 4 4s, and then the rest are 3s. And this is kind of interesting to me how it's different for each person. If you struggle with technology, I realized in the results that you have a harder time in this class. And if you're better with technology, then you do better in this class, especially with the projects in mind. So I think that's an interesting point that came up out of it. So what did you guys think was your favorite project? What project made you want to use it in the future? What project made you deter from it or maybe want to find different things? Did you like the idea of him implementing projects once a week? Did you feel like it was too aggressive on his part? Is there one that like sticks out to you that you're like really mad at, or one that sticks out to you that like, you're like okay with?
Me personally, I liked the Nearpod just because it was more interactive and the students could like go in and participate in the games or the quizzes or fill in the blanks, multiple choice, matching, whatever it was. So you still got to like create the lesson, but it was more interactive for the students. So I agree with that one for the results. The Nearpod was definitely a bigger project that we would all use in the future.
I feel like I had I had very mixed emotions on the social media project, like the social media project. I thought I said that wrong. Sorry. I didn't think it was hard necessarily. Like I thought that was definitely probably the easiest one. Like it took the least amount of time for me to do. But it just, to me, it just felt almost the most pointless. Cause like, for example, like I already had a Twitter account. I didn't really use it very much. So I just went ahead and made a new one because I didn't want to like have to go follow a whole bunch of new people or like unfollow or like anything like that. So I just made a new one, but I went in and followed all the people I was required to follow on Twitter. And what was the other one?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. I wanted to say Indeed. It was LinkedIn. That's right. But I like did that, and then I have not used either of those accounts like once since. I like submitted it, and that was it. So I had very mixed emotions about it. I was like, hey, that was easy. Like that wasn't too hard, but it just felt really kind of pointless to me. But I did really like the Nearpod one. I've actually used Nearpod and GoReact. I like the GoReact one. Okay. I did use Nearpod and GoReact in a couple other of my classes here at BYUI. And so it was like, oh, like I'm kind of familiar with this. So it felt like easier than some of the other ones that I wasn't so familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really agree with Elizabeth and the social media project. I literally remember thinking to myself, like, this is like not relevant at all. Like I was just like confused as to like why we were doing it. Like, but it actually was probably the easiest project. Like I actually found it like the least amount of work. But I remember sitting there like following 100 different people and I was like, what is the point of this? Like I just remember thinking like I don't really know the relevancy of this project, but like I don't know, I guess there is some point to it. I don't really know what, but and I also, I didn't love the flip grid. I found that one kind of, again, with the software, I just did not love it. Like, that. And then other projects, like I liked doing projects once a week. I actually thought they were like, for the most part, I actually liked doing them and they were like interesting to me. So yeah, I would keep the projects for the most part.
Thanks, guys.